are back on the X52 podcast. It is Saturday, January 4th. My name is Jake Louque, and I'm joined by Spenny Playoffs on my screen partner as the Ravens have beaten the Cleveland Browns, the Cleveland Clowns, 35-10 at M&T Bank Stadium in a frigid affair, just an absolute ice fest out there. I felt like Jack Nicholson at the end of The Shining, spoilers, as I was walking out of that stadium, feet totally numb, head empty, face red, got the rosacea thing going on. But it is okay because the Ravens clinched the AFC North. As Patrick Queen would say, they won themselves a T-shirt and a hat game. How are you feeling about it all, my friend?
Definitely an accomplishment and something that I think is really impressive about this Ravens team. We talked about it, on the preview, winning 4 out of 7, winning back-to-back, being down, having a tough stretch in the middle of this season, playing a gauntlet like they did of both really elite quarterbacks, basically the who's who of NFL quarterbacks, aside from Jared Goff, and some really good defenses. Had the 5th strongest defensive opponent schedule, so to speak, by DVOA this year, according to Aaron Schatz, who runs that shit. And impressive, 12-5, win the division, took care of business when business needed to be taken care of. No small accomplishment winning the division by any means. I don't think it is at all. No small accomplishment. So all of that was fantastic. The game itself was a little, it happens. And my buddy Clay put it well. It's, it's human element. You're looking ahead to the playoffs. It's just what humans do. You're playing the 3-13 Browns. They have 10 starters out. The eye wasn't quite on the ball, I don't think. I think some play calling, in classic guy on couch after game fashion, I'm going to say got a little cute. They go for it on 4th down. They run some little RPO flare to Henry, has an option, something, some weird play. Don't get a quarterback sneak. There were weird spots in this game. They had a lot of procedural penalties, which was really frustrating to watch for a team that it felt like has had their eye on the ball, has limited those mistakes. And then delay of game, illegal formation, penalty. They have 4 They had like 4 false starts. I think they have maybe 4 or 5 procedural penalties offensively, and don't want to see that. That was pretty frustrating. I thought it was a frustrating game to watch. I think that the Ravens were frustrated. I think that Lamar Jackson was frustrated. Substitutions were coming in late. So I don't think they had a championship level attention to detail today. That's okay. It just is a little frustrating and makes people and makes myself feel trepidation about going into the postseason. And, you need to play 4 really clean games, right? You need to be pretty clean. You need to be eye on the ball, not shooting yourself in the foot much for 4 games. If you do, you can probably get away with winning a game, maybe 2 in the playoffs that way, but you're playing the best of the best now. If you advance to the second round, the wild card is still, anything can happen. We watched the Packers last year shock the Cowboys and beat the crap out of them. Who knows? But likely you're probably going to have to go to Buffalo and play a good Buffalo team and a good Buffalo quarterback that's well coached. They're a championship caliber team. You can't go shoot yourself in the foot on the road. You'll fucking lose. So was not impressed by all that. Nate Wiggins, incredible, fun play at the beginning of the game. Michael Pierce seals. It starts with a pick 6, ends with an interception by Michael Pierce, who has not had an interception since his junior year of high school in Alabama. So that was awesome. That was fun. He actually jumped that throw. It didn't kind of just come right at him. He kind of drop stepped and made a play. That was really fun. Kyle Van Noy gets a sack. Really fun. Henry late ices the game. They make some plays. Lamar made plays. It was sloppy. If you're casually watching on TV and you're not a Ravens fan, you go, oh yeah, they beat the shit out of them. They covered 20 points. That's impressive. All those things, but devil's in the details, and that can be a good thing if you're a coaching staff. It's nice to go back over tape lightly, later tonight, and then in the morning they say Harbaugh always sends his text. That's what players always talk about. He sends you text, and if you get a text, it's you fuck this up. So send the text out. And it's good. It's nice as a coach. Again, what is Saban always saying? What do I always refer to? You know, you learn more from mistakes. You learn more in defeat than you do in victory. Not that the Ravens lost, but it's nice to say, hey, you took your eye off the ball. That wasn't championship attention to detail. So that was cool. Odafe Owe finishes with 10 sacks. Derrick Henry, you were at the game too, Jake. I mean, how many? The announcer was like, Derrick Henry.
It's still Cunningham, right?
The first player in NFL history to have 27 100-yard rushing games and 2 rushing touchdowns. It was like 20 minutes of the Ravens legendary PA announcer who also does games for Navy and I think some other places. But it was 20 minutes of Derrick Henry. Like
you get a lot of those in like the last game of the year, especially in this era where there's been a lot of historic rushing seasons. But Bruce Cunningham, shout out to our guy, was working overtime tonight. There was that. There was Roquan Smith, youngest player to 1,000 tackles. Lamar Jackson crossing the 40 passing touchdown mark. You can feel free to continue on your point, but I was clocking that as the game was going along.
Henry was sitting on the bench and he was like, there was the first one. It was like, he just broke the Ravens franchise record for most rushing touchdowns. He already set the scrimmage touchdown last week. And he was like, oh yeah, thanks everyone. He was wearing really cool Louis Vuitton gloves. I don't know if you caught that. It was like Louis Vuitton print on the inside. Gets his, $500,000, 16 rushing touchdown escalator incentive, whatever. So it was like that one. And he was like, oh, yeah, thanks, everyone. And then it was like, and he did this. And he was like, thanks, everyone. And
the one at the end, he was just like, he looked like he couldn't have been more put out by it. He was just like, all right, can we just like get the hell off of this freezing field? I think all those guys at that point, and it was a long game, a lot of injuries. You mentioned the flags were flying left and right. A Browns player got carted off. I'm not sure who that was. Forgive me, but that was
Michael. What's his name? It's Hall, the 21-year-old defensive tackle.
Yeah, scary sight there. So hope he's okay. But yeah, there was
Mike Hall Jr. Yeah, their second round pick. A real shame there. You got to feel awful. It was a bad injury. It looked like he's got the air cast on and carted off. Sucks in week 18, man. Sucks.
Yeah, that did. And then guys just kind of getting dinged up throughout the game. Bateman took a huge hit from Juan Thornhill, I think, on the first drive that had him, people were concerned about that. Hamilton landed awkwardly at one point. He came off the field, went back into the game. Obviously, the big one to talk about is Zay Flowers, who on a really nice catch and run is working his way down to the sideline. Looked like he knocked his knees together. Looks just uncomfortable walking off the field. I was kind of following him the whole way. He went off under his own power, but he definitely looked hobbled, went right into the tent, did not come back into the game. They marked him questionable. It's now coming out that I believe LCL sprain is the initial diagnosis. He's getting an MRI tomorrow. Ian Rappaport putting it out there that it is possible that he will be able to go next week. So we'll have to see about that. I know you're kind of down in the dumps about that one, so we can get into that discussion.
I am apoplectic about it. Actually, I came on this podcast. I was like, I'm not just going to be as negative as I've been.
Well, we'll get through it, and then we can go back to the positive stuff.
Yeah, I am completely and utterly discouraged in terms of. There's a lot to unpack. I thought this was an issue early in the season. When we did the preseason preview, it was. What is there? What is the issue? What is the hole? We identified pass rush, kind of edge rushers, question mark. And, Van Noy and Owe finished with double-digit sacks each. It's been good. The pass rush, I think, has been better than maybe expected for sure. But, I'm not going to sit here and say it's, the best on earth. But they consistently get pressure, and they actually convert a lot of sacks relative to pressure. So we talked about that a good bit in late August before week 1. And then I'm really worried about what happens when. So my own stupid self-fulfilling prophecy, but when one of Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman goes down, what does it look like? Nelson Aguilar hasn't been playing on top. Nelson Aguilar is a nice player, and I mean no disrespect, which usually when someone says that, it kind of means disrespect, but I genuinely don't. He isn't a separator. He is a role player. He can sit down on his own. He can run really fast in a straight line. He can block well. He can do some nice things. He's a role player. When we have seen, and I'm gonna devil's advocate myself, when we have seen either Bateman or Flowers go down in the 2024 iteration of the Baltimore Ravens offense, we saw Bateman go down against the Eagles, and Deontay Johnson on the podcast. I didn't want to tweet it, but on the podcast, I'm gonna say, "Fuck you, Deontay Johnson. Fuck you. Fuck you. Seriously." This is why they traded for him. It makes me so fucking angry. as a fan. It makes me so irrationally angry. That's why they traded for him. That's why I was so happy about that trade, because my concern of this offense, it takes them from an impossible offense to a possible offense to defend, in my opinion. And I say that it's a hyperbole in a way. Having two separators on the outside, in addition to the tight ends, in addition to Derrick Henry, in addition to what Lamar Jackson is, makes this an impossible offense to defend. That is why they've been a historically potent offense. They had the second highest yards per play, 30 points, whatever. They had some weird spurts, offensive line, weird games against the Raiders, whatever. When Flowers went down against the Eagles, Bateman, it's just easier to cover. It's a lot easier to cover. I will say it fucks your game plan up when it happens mid-game. So being able to prepare to not have Zay Flowers is going to be better. And that's something that I, in the last 20 to 30 minutes in my own reflection of it, thought of. Like, okay, when your game plan is Rashad Bateman, I get these plays, these situations, these things, these looks for him, and then he's removed. Then you're like, fuck, I don't have anything for Tylan Wallace. I can have Tylan Wallace do the things that I wanted Rashad Bateman to do. Does that fit him best? Does he know how to do it? So there's a whole flow chart. If, then, this, yes, no, all of that. I just think Zay Flowers as well is such a contrast to the rest of their skill set that they have. The jitterbug, the full speed acceleration. He can run an in, an out, a dig, whatever you want to call it. Full speed and completely separate. He did that against the Eagles on a 40-yard play. They shaded him after Bateman went down, and he still separated downfield cleanly. I think he presents a dynamic element in terms of separation, in terms of being able to beat man coverage, in terms of what he can do with the football in his hands, and I think it really does handicap the Ravens' offense. They are still a very good offense. You do still have Bateman, who looks awesome and is, very capable. You ask him to step up more. It's a little easier in ways. I just think that skill set's tough. And I mean, what happens if he gets dinged up now then? It could happen. It's fucking cold outside. Joints are tight. Guys are worn down from the rigor of the season. As you just mentioned, Jake, Bateman got rocked in this game and came off the field. And I was pissed about that. I was like, of course, one of these two guys. I mean, of the entire Ravens roster, I would say those two guys, I mean, I don't want to rank everybody, but like Hamilton, Roquan Smith, Marlon, Lamar, Henry, and then probably those two guys. Like Andrews and Likely are right there. Linderbaum, Stanley, sure. I don't know. I really think is a tough pill to swallow. Like you said, the injury supposedly is an LCL sprain. And everyone's like, this is what I keep seeing on Twitter immediately. And maybe I'm a complete jackass, but I don't think he's coming back for 3 weeks. If you have a sprained LCL, you're not playing in 14 days against, hypothetically, to skip ahead, and maybe it ends up not even being an issue. The Ravens could very well lose next week. The Bills could lose. Anyone could lose. He's not playing in Buffalo. I think if he has a sprained LCL, I don't think he's playing in Buffalo at all. I think it would be a push to think. I think I would put it minus 175 that he does not play in the AFC Championship game if the Ravens were to make it. Like, that's not a short-term injury. That's not rub some fucking dirt on and go out. He's a wide receiver, man. Like, if it was a tackle, if Mikey Pierce, bless his heart, if he sprains his LCL, he can still go fucking fight in a phone booth. When you're LCL sprain, your knee sprain, or you have a bone bruise that's really bad, the cutting, the deceleration, the force that you apply. I remember watching Sports Science. They talked about Ray Rice's ability to decelerate and the amount of force that he generated on his joints when he stopped from a sprint to make someone miss. That's tough when you have a sprained ligament in your knee. So I'm really discouraged by it. Very much so. I don't think the Ravens have an excuse either. They still have Bateman and Andrews and Likely, and, Justice Hill hopefully comes back and you just pop back into the swing of things. I don't know. But they still do have other guys. Lamar Jackson is, the MVP 2 times, 99 out of 100 votes, and very well may be this time. Who knows? Deuce 1042. I know you tweeted this to me too. Every single fucking year they're in the playoffs, somebody is really banged up on their offense. It's always, always, always an impact player on their offense every single time. Last year was Mark Andrews. Lamar Jackson misses before that. 2020, Ronnie Stanley kind of derailed them. The Ravens end up basically losing because they had to do some weird stuff. They're asking their running backs to pick up guys. They're platooning against the Bills. Lamar throws a pick six because protection broke down, whatever. And then Mark Andrews and Mark Ingram are both hurt in 2019 against the Titans, and they didn't look like themselves. So I think it's really unfortunate. I don't think the Ravens have an excuse, and I'm not ready to give them one, but I feel I thought the Ravens are legitimately a short list of three teams that would win the Super Bowl, really. I thought it'd be Bills, Ravens, Eagles in my head, and I don't have the Ravens on that list without Zay Flowers. And people keep saying like things like this, like 13, like that's not what they're going to do. They're going to keep it even. Like you're not going to go 13 personnel, a shitload. Maybe for one game. I just don't know. It's the irony of it being their first Pro Bowl receiver. Not that the Pro Bowl is that big of a deal, but it's been a big thing that people have thought of. Oh, Pro Bowl receiver, and then of course gets hurt right into the playoffs. I would go as far as to say I would rather I would never say to rest the starters, I think you should win your division, but in hindsight, I would rather the Ravens not win the AFC North and have Zay Flowers. Like that, I think he makes a bigger difference than you playing at home next week. I think it's a big fucking deal. I think it sucks. And I hate it. I hate Deontay Johnson. He was complaining on a short week after they traded for him. He was already complaining. And this is why they made that move. And it was why the cost was so low. So should have known, but then there's the comments like, who cares? We're very healthy otherwise, other than your leading receiver. That fucking sucks to lose your leading receiver going into the playoffs. That sucks. I hate it. Who cares? Just fucking bleh. And sure, it's a single game tournament. Nick Foles can come win the Super Bowl. It fucking sucks. People are like, oh, all right, Captain Hindsight. Yeah, in hindsight, it sucks. I think it sucks in hindsight. So they win the AFC North. I'm sorry to be a downer. It's usually not, what I like to do, but I am incredibly discouraged and frustrated. There's no one to blame. No one did anything wrong. It's fucking football. It sucks. It's 20 degrees out, and I'm fucking pissed. I frankly am pissed. I hate it. I hate it. It ruined the day for me. I fucking hate it.
I'm in total agreement with you on all your feelings about it. I thought it looked rough with him coming off the field. I wouldn't be surprised if the prognosis plays out like you expect. I will say I love you to death. I love that you do this. I do think you get a little too in the weeds with the medical stuff sometimes, and we just don't know. He could be out 3 weeks. He could come back and play this week. You don't know with this
I
stuff.
hope so. I really hope he does, and I hope that all of this is for naught. But
erring on the side of
brain, and I'm like, all right, you're absolutely right. I definitely go too into the weeds. I'm
and
nothing.
I've had significant knee problems, and sometimes they are worse than they look. Sometimes they heal quicker than you expect. This stuff is very fickle.
Sometimes people walk off the field and you're like, oh, they got up and walked, and then it's like, oh, he actually completely tore everything in his knee.
Yeah, right. And it's this is it's win or go home now, and have whatever qualms or quarrel that you want with this, but shit, man, they're gonna be ethically and within the rules of the NFL shooting him up with whatever they need to shoot him up with to get him out there if there's a chance that he can play. So if there's a chance that he can get out there, and maybe this is against his own better judgment, but he's the type of guy that I think would say, yeah, just give me all the cortisol, just give me whatever the fuck I need and get me out there. That could happen too. I don't expect that he's going to play in that first game, but beyond that, I'm not really going to predict what exactly is going to happen with this thing. But you're right. In this moment, it does stink to lose him for that game. But what I would say is that, yeah, you lost him, and that stinks, and it's terrible. But teams have weathered worse, at least for 1 week. If you go beyond that, I think it becomes much bigger of an issue. But you got to be able to handle a Charger or a Steelers team at home. You've got enough depth, and it does make you more one-dimensional. But you've got 2 Pro Bowl type tight ends. Bateman obviously looked awesome today, and I think looked great throughout this season. Beyond that, it's hopefully Aguilar is healthy and ready to go, and you can do something with him. And that's again, it's also why you go and get Derrick Henry as well. You've got to be able to, when things go tough, and when you get off on the wrong foot, or for example, you have something like this happen, you need to be able to lean back on that. So yeah, I'm totally with you, where I'm just sitting there and saying that it really blows, and your heart goes out to Zay, who obviously had an awesome season and probably wanted to cap it off with a great playoff run, but they're going to be without him for probably at least one game.
Especially after last season, he was such an issue for the Chiefs, and gets one penalty, and then it's just
fumbles to the end zone.
Heart goes out to the guy, the competitor. He was walking off the field, and he was so frustrated. Like, he was limping, he was slowly, gingerly walking off, and his hand motions and gestures, he was irate. And that he just wanted to come back, and not that he even needs to redeem himself or whatever, but he's just been so fucking good and such an impact player. And after the catch,
and a good comment there by Matty Camacho. Thank you for the tip. Who says, we don't know, but we move forward. This is Baltimore. We don't use excuses. And Zay went down to the Bucks game and still produced. Let's go, gents. That's kind of probably what I was thinking of a little bit, is he went down in that Bucks game, and I was like, shit, that might be kind of dicey. And then he's back right away. Granted, I think this one probably looked a little bit worse than that one. But again, it's just, we don't know. And this is soft tissue stuff, right? Again, it's just, you kind of heal on your own clock. You've got your own body clock, your own sort of body mechanics.
It's very random. Yeah. Fickle is the right word to use.
So I get why you're down in the dumps. I'm right there, pretty much with you. But as far as prognosticating, we really just can't do much about it at this point.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't know. It just really, 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 really sucks. So as things stand, who knows? My prediction was that, the Steelers will be coming to town. The benched Chargers will somehow beat the, I guess, starting in a way, Raiders. So who knows what happens in that game? I don't know. But I hated it. I hated it. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. And hopefully there's good news tomorrow. Anything could be the case. Anything could be the case. Rappaport and Jordan Schultz and all of them are tweeting out, week to week, yada, yada, yada. As long as there's no long-term damage, as long as nothing is torn, there is hope in that way. But it's just, I don't know. I'm it's so in my head about it. It's I'm not blaming him, but it's Andrew Voorhees comes into the game instead of Ben Cleveland, or, McCary's not playing and ends up being in the perfect position. And it's just a butterfly effect of things. And then I'm so many people, I'm sure, are so upset when you see Kyle Hamilton go down.
Dude, there's just nothing, there's nothing you could do. And people want to throw blame around. And I saw some Buffalo fans just, people trying to push this Josh Allen MVP thing, having some fun with it, talking about stat padding in a game that doesn't matter. It's they're trying to win the division. You had to play everyone in this game. You had to win this game. They played with their food a little bit early. They didn't score enough touchdowns early enough, and they couldn't bench guys. And that's just the way it goes. And you needed this one.
I mean, he got hurt very early in the game. It was
right. Yeah. And guys,
early second quarter,
guys just get hurt. And that's just the way that it goes sometimes. And you can't blame anyone. We seek blame. We seek to blame people because we seek to have meaning and order in a world where there isn't always meaning and order. Maybe you should watch some Coen Brothers movies or read some Cormac McCarthy, because sometimes bad shit just happens and you just can't explain why. And it sucks, but you just move forward.
Certainly. Mark here says, the Ravens have a lot of depth if you're willing to play insanely heavy, one fewer dimension, but it leaves our best dimensions on the field still as Ravens. But then you play the Chiefs, who fuck you up when you play heavy and punch you in your mouth. So it's nice that if you want to do that or whatever, that you have a really incredibly shifty wide receiver who can separate. And when you play heavy, there's a lot more space downfield. So I think it makes you worse when you play heavy. He's the best person to have on the outside when you play heavy. So it makes your heavy personnel worse. It is very bad. His ability to separate one-on-one, in-break, out-break, lateral breaks is very special. It is why he has 1,000 yards. It is because he is a matchup problem, because 6-foot corners who weigh more than him, and he gets the advantage of knowing where he's going, can't cut as fast as he can. So that's why it sucks. And again, we don't know. So I jumped to worst case in this situation, but I'm is he going to feel good in Kansas City? What's the temperature going to be there in Buffalo in a week? Fucking 10 degrees at night with 40-mile-an-hour winds. Is his knee going to feel good off a sprain? Is that going to feel right and confident and good to play well? I don't know. We've seen gritty things happen. T.O. played on a broken leg. Orlando Brown on the TV behind me is playing with 2 fractures in his fibula right now.
And nobody will tell you about it more than him, by the way.
Nobody will. Nobody will tell than the man with the big rabbit's foot. God bless his soul.
Yeah,
Um,
the Farrah Fawcett T-shirt.
yeah. He really is the best.
He loves him some him, and I love that for him.
He loves him some him, and I do love him. I'll always love him. He's a great character. So Zay Flowers banged up. That's my Debbie Downer. That's why we do this podcast, to be, get it out, be cathartic in ways. Feel a little better now. And Mark, I'm not singling you out or anything. You're good. They have plenty of other options. They have good players still. It's not. I don't even want to say anything to jinx anything, but they have a lot of other options still. And frankly, it looked like to me in this game, and I would need to go back and look more, but it kind of looked like they started using Bateman in Zay's role. And Bateman does some things better than Zay does. He has a bigger catch radius as well. I think he is a bigger target that can track the ball downfield. I think he's a little calmer, sitting down in some windows a little bit, some things like that. So, it's a huge opportunity for Rashad Bateman, who looked fantastic after Zay did go down against, it was, half backups Brown secondary, but Bateman made plays late in this game to get the starters out of the game eventually. Has the touchdown, but then later, sits down in zone, makes a couple guys miss on a third down. Then he makes a nice catch down the sideline, good concentration. He looks almost as good and explosive as he looked in 2022 to start the season. So it's just unfortunate, but got to live with it. Got to go handle business, and it is what it is. So Zay Flowers. This is the sole sore spot. Everything else is fun. Derrick Henry is so fun. Nate Wiggins, so fun. Michael Pierce.
I mean, that Wiggins, dude, when I got into my seats and I sat down, I had been moving around a good bit. I'm not imbibing this month. So it was kind of a cold tailgate. I was out there for a little while, had a couple Cokes. And then you're moving around a little bit. The sun is still out. And then I sat down in my seat. The sun started to go down. And I'm just kind of thinking what are we doing here? It's just kind of that 20-degree weather. The wind starts kicking up a little bit. Ravens kick it away. They didn't get a 3-and-out, but they force a punt. Then they're punting, alternatively. And I'm kind of just sitting there, and I feel my heart starting to go. I'm just I don't know about this one. Kind of eyeing up the stairs. Can I get down to the concourse for a little bit? And it just didn't feel right. And then all of a sudden, Nate Wiggins just jumping around. Zappy was trying to hit the perimeter receiver on same spot exactly that Marlon Humphrey got his pick six, basically. And yeah, that was the one that woke me up. That one got the blood flowing. That was so much fun and really good for Nate Wiggins to get his first pick and turn it into a pick six.
He's dropped a couple of those in that same area.
Yeah, he has. He did recently, I think. And so, yeah, it's good to see him finish on that one, click and close, as we like to say, and really set the tone for this game that I think the defense kind of carried the water in this one. I think the offense was working on some stuff. I think they didn't want to show too much either. And then there was the procedural penalties, which we talked about, which were frustrating. But overall, I think what I would say is that it's good to, I think you sort of hit on this a little bit early on. It's good to kind of get that one out of the way in a game that you can afford to, because you're right. It's not going to work against the Steelers team or a Chargers team nearly as well. So I had a good stretch there without dealing with those for 3 games in a row. The demons come out of the closet a little bit in this one. Pause. But then ultimately it just kind of, you can afford to have that happen. You can have this be sort of a tune-up game of sorts, kind of like that Giants game was as you were coming out of the bye. Work out some things. Hopefully the offensive line's a little more settled next week, and they can use this, like I said, as a bit of a tune-up game. But overall, Lamar 2 passing touchdowns, Henry 2 on the ground. A pick 6 from your rookie first-round pick, a pick to end the season on by your big defensive tackle, who was an undrafted free agent 8 years ago. He leaves, he comes back. Good vibe story, and a good vibe to close the game out on. Everyone was super fired up for Michael Pierce on that pick. Zach Ward, just a madman, dropping him into coverage there. I know you love that.
That was a hilarious call at the end as the Browns are kind of driving. And I don't know, my stupid gambling brain. I'm sure there are so many people that were like, no shot they covered 20. No shot. Nobody's covering 20. And that pick to seal it was funny. I saw some people had some pretty big bets on the Ravens minus 20.5 and things like that. So I love that call. Love the interception. And the tough part of you mentioned kind of the beginning. It's what are they doing? It felt like Lamar had to do everything himself a little bit, running around. Zay drops a pass early. the run game's not going. Tyler Linderbaum was getting his ass whipped. A couple reps I saw. The Browns front was whipping ass. Ravens couldn't get the run game going. Pass game was discombobulated, all those things. So that Wiggins pick, I mean, it was a gift, but it was a nice breath of fresh air. And it just feels like early in the season, this team wouldn't have turned the ball over. And then suddenly they have, 2 defensive touchdowns late in the season and defining moments against AFC North opponents, which was very fun. This is an interesting tidbit too. Wiggins' first interception, a touchdown, and Tez Walker's first catch, a touchdown. Those are fun little stats for this draft class. It was a weird game. Bailey Zappi, but the Brandon Stevens drive, I almost ripped my hair out 15 times.
I was thinking of you right on that one because they just kept
my bitch. Brandon Stevens. It was the Brandon Stevens drive. I was literally yelling in my section. Everyone's probably like, all right, calm down. But the pass interference, which was pass interference, the bullshit chant is alive and well in Baltimore as always. The male cheerleaders seem to really get a kick out of that because they're chanting defense into their little cones that they yell into, but they're kind of like, oh, hey, they're yelling bullshit, but I'm yelling defense. They have this look on their face. It's funny. But that was PI for sure. I honestly think it was a touchdown that got called back and overturned.
I was so excited. I thought we were going to get the fumble through the end zone. I was like, oh, yes, we finally get one of those to go.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, yeah, did it come out before the pylon? I turned into a forensic scientist on that one. And
get the old
it's either not a catch or it's a fumble through the end zone. Just like, come on, guys. And of course, not a catch.
I don't know how it wasn't a touchdown, but was an incompletion. I think he had control of the ball. But that drive was just ridiculous to me. And it gets to the point where they move him inside. They brought Trey White in. And I think that I don't even know if Bailey Zappi realized maybe that's just where he wanted to go with the ball, whatever. But to me, it was who's my bitch. All right, let's go attack Brandon Stevens on the outside. They bump Stevens inside. Then they throw a slant at Trey White, who is now playing right corner for Brandon Stevens. Brandon Stevens stays inside, and then they run whatever. I don't even know what tight end that is. Jordan Akins. I don't even know if he's on the Browns. I thought that's who it was.
Yeah, it is. He had a solid game. He had that big catch to open their drive up, and you're kind of thinking like, and then they stopped him.
Yep, and then they run maybe like a little smash or a little China or something, and lo and behold, it's Brandon Stevens in man coverage, and they zip it right at him, and I was just like, oh my God. They threw it at him 4 times in 6 plays, and really 5 times if you count Trey White. They threw it at the right corner, and the other one was a run play. So that was a wild sequence to watch, but they get it done in the end. Lamar Jackson, makes some plays. Derrick Henry runs away with it, 43-yard touchdown. The Ravens finish. I wish stats would update fully. I might have to use NFL GSIS. But the Ravens end up.
You want what's that?
Like career, like season stats. Like what did Henry finish with? 1,920 yards, about, give or take. Lamar Jackson finishes with the first quarterback ever over 4,000 yards passing, 800 yards rushing. He finishes with 5,000 total yards. He had 63 yards running. The Ravens end up crazy because in the first half, they ran for 76 yards on 14 carries. I guess they kind of in the second quarter had a couple. It seemed like it was even less than that, honestly. But then they finished with 35 for 220 and 2 touchdowns. Lamar Jackson finishes 16 and 32, 217 yards, 2 touchdowns with probably 3 drops in there. Bateman, 5 for 76 and a touchdown. He finishes with 9 touchdowns on the season, which I think a lot of people before this season would have said would never happen in 2024. Mark Andrews sets the Ravens tight end record with his 12th touchdown. He also set, again, you were joking about how many records were set this game. Mark Andrews has the longest streak of games with touchdowns in Ravens history. It's 6 consecutive games with a receiving touchdown now. So he set that record and the Ravens tight end record and his own career high. So there were some fun ones. Isaiah Likely makes a big play. Pat Ricard with a fun rumble down the sideline.
And what an act of unselfish teamwork to go down there at the 1-yard line and let Henry get that bonus. I mean, that's exactly what was going through our guy Project Pat's mind on that.
It was perfect. It aligned perfectly to get Henry the bonus. And I frankly put $50 on the Ravens' second drive. They're driving, and it was Henry to score a touchdown on that drive plus 190. I was like, done deal. They're getting him his touchdown. And then it just continued on. And so many people in the stadium had to be talking about like, well, Henry has an incentive, so they're going to get him his touchdown, and eventually do, and then he gets a second one, which was funny there. I'm seeing Joe Burrow is hurt right now, which I would imagine sends the Chargers to Baltimore, if that is the case. But fun season, man. A lot of struggle and shit they had to overcome, starting with the tragic passing of Joe D'Alessandro. Rest in peace. I know that Kyle Van Noy and a lot of players were shouting him out. And I know Tyler Linderbaum has talked a lot about how he thinks that Joe D would be really proud of this unit that has gotten a lot better. They did get their butt kicked today, but they're good down the stretch. So JJ Sanders here, you can tell Lamar was trying to give him that 10th. Bateman, I don't know, maybe late third quarter, early fourth quarter. Lamar got hit, and it was when Lamar came off the sideline and was doing the thing with his hands he does where he gets furious. Something was wrong. I have never seen a player so sad that the ball didn't come to them. Bateman destroyed a corner and was 6 yards past him, turned around and saw the ball was already incomplete on the ground, and he was just like,
that was a duck. I think Lamar got jostled when he threw it, and then I think the wind got it a little bit too. But that went nowhere.
No. That you're thinking of the one that was like the end zone shot. I think that was in the first half. There was one in the second half where Bateman was alone downfield. Would have been I think the Ravens had the ball around their own 45. Would have been like a 55-yard touchdown. He was start looking to see if the ball was coming to track, and then he turned all the way around and was like, he just put his head back. It was so sad. Yep. But interesting game, frustrating game.
Lamar, after one of the delay of games, was apoplectic, and it was so obvious.
They were taking too long. They were fucking around with the fucking sideline.
It was happening on defense too. Guys were just like, Owe was like, "Am I on? Am I off?" At a couple of different points. I'm like, "All right, guys, let's let's get
to assume." I'm going to say that is a coaching issue. That to me, that says that someone's not calling shit in, and Monken, or whoever is relaying the personnel from or Monken, because Orr's on the sideline, so it has to be him. They weren't getting the fucking personnel in on time. That's the Greg Roman shit. When you're doing all these fucking substitutions, when that becomes an issue in the game, stop subbing for a bit. Stop the big grand show so everybody can breathe. And they didn't. And then delay of game, illegal formation. There was the one play where Keaton Mitchell and Tylan Wallace both tried to go in motion, and then Tylan Wallace goes and gets reset, and then Keaton Mitchell, I think, was moving up.
It would have, if that run had stood, it would have put them into field goal range, going to kick a field goal to go into the half. That was a bad one.
Really bad. Tyler Constantine here with a great comment. Yeah, Andrews made that sliding catch down towards the goal line. That was awesome. And such a great catch.
He was awesome in this game. That touchdown as well. That was a dime from Lamar and a great catch by him. Those guys are really clicking right now, in a big way. It's kind of flown a little bit under the radar down this kind of last 4-game stretch. I know he scored a touchdown in every game, but he's kind of quietly
think about that catch against the Eagles, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Everyone's talking about Lamar. Everyone's talking about Henry, rightfully so. And obviously Zay, has been amazing. And there's all these other options, but Andrews is still quietly just the old workhorse, man. He's still just getting it done in a big way.
His competitive spirit is Lamar's is very high as well, but Andrews wanted a PI, I think, or he wanted a PI at one point. I think he got that one. That was what got him down. Maybe it was a spot or a drop or something, and he was going off on a referee. He is so fiery and just feels like he is. Earlier in his career, he definitely was a little bit maybe lighter, and he's turned into a more effective blocker, and he was a little bit more dangerous after the catch earlier in his career. But he is so competitive at the catch point to break free and to win at the top of his route, and his focus and concentration. He used to drop a shitload of balls.
Yeah.
He used to really drop a lot of passes. Fucking does not anymore. So he feels, I'll say, and he did not some big crazy statement, coming off of a broken leg, I think he's the best he's ever been in his career. I think he is the best version of himself in the year 2024 into 2025. What we've seen, especially over the last 2 months, he has been crazy. And JJ Sanders, especially with Zay out, they're going to need to make those plays. That sliding catch that's a tight window throw, you're going to need that. And it feels like we don't get that in the playoffs enough. It feels like they don't just let it rip.
Yep.
To quote Carmi's big brother in The Bear.
Or McConaughey to Texas before they played Notre Dame that one year.
Let it rip, man. Seriously. Lamar and Mark, let it rip. The Eagles touchdown is the definition of like,
fuck, it's a fuck it ball. That's just like,
you can beat anyone. You guys can, Lamar and Andrews can beat anyone. They're capable of scoring, making plays, winning games. Awesome. And Likely was awesome too. Likely arc blocking and doing the bluff and running out for Lamar has been so lethal. So lethal. They converted a third down that they needed, I think, in the third quarter on that one. Lamar was able to kind of run out of bounds. Yeah. And flagship fantasy, I don't either. The Ravens have Andrews and Likely and Bate, plenty of weapons, coupled with Henry. Again, you do still have lots of weapons, and you do have an MVP quarterback. And, I think he's the most talented quarterback to ever play football. Like, has he been the most successful? No. Tom Brady is the most successful. Patrick Mahomes is the most successful of this generation. But I think he's the most talented. I think he's the most dangerous player in the world. So, Ardarius Washington, someone that I'm just going to continue to shout out, he's a fucking bully. Like, it is not some ironic thing because he's small. Like, he was tossing guys out of bounds. He was punching the ball out of Jordan Aiken's hands. He is really playing confidently, and I think is a real impact player on this team too.
He is. I'd also give a huge shout out to Marlon Humphrey in this game. He was flying around. He made that play on the ball to get them off the field early. Massive hit on one of their tight ends, flipped him over, had another couple of big hits. He was just flying to the ball. He looked like young Marlon in this game. It was awesome.
Playing the trail tech and able to keep up in man coverage. He looks as fast as he's ever looked in that recovery, that trail technique, that man coverage. I will say I want to go back and watch. The guy who sits next to me vehemently disagreed, but I believe it was maybe third and short in the first or second quarter. And he was lined up on Jerry Jeudy, and the Browns went into like 13 personnel and ran a play action, and Jeudy ran like a 7-step slant or like a bang post or something. And Jeudy won inside, and the ball ended up going there. And I think Marlon grabbed his ass. I think Marlon definitely committed PI. But the guidance to me was, I want to go back and watch that. G asked the question here: who would you prefer in the wild card round?
I think we did this last episode, and we both kind of just like were like whoever. Like, they're both going to be tough, I think. So
it's your literal little brother that you already played this year, or it's your rival. So they both are formidable opponents in their own.
I think we came out to like Chargers, better quarterback, Steelers, better, more cohesive team at this point. I don't know if today that's bearing out 100%. It sounds like the reviews are not strong on the Pittsburgh performance, but
Steelers defense is nasty, and they know us. But I think the question might be, the best way to put this is, who would the Ravens be a heavier favorite against?
Right.
I think it would be the same thing. I think it'd be 6.5 points either way. I think it would be 5.5 or 6.5, right in that range. So I'll say 6 on both the Chargers and Steelers. Right around there. Who do I think the Ravens are more likely to beat, like, percentage wise? I would probably say the Chargers. Again, the Steelers just make more plays defensively. They take the ball away from you. They're a divisional opponent, so I think that always is tough. We did this. They both have great kickers. Herbert is the better quarterback. The Steelers offense is playing like shit. The Chargers would are an indoor. They're a house cat that has to come play outside in the cold.
You talk about separators. I think McConkey is a better separator than anyone in the group, but I think Pickens just makes those catches down the sideline that just rip your heart out, and that just is so frustrating to watch.
I think the Ravens can deal with McConkey better than they can deal with Pickens.
Yeah, like Stevens against Pickens, like I'm good on that. Like, no thanks.
I'm curious to see how much the Ravens are going to play Stevens on the outside. Today had to be like a little bit of like a god damn. Kind of let up 2 touchdowns in my mind in one drive, kind of, and had a PI also.
Well, he actually had the presence of awareness to let the guy catch the ball and then rip it out and push it through the end zone so the Ravens could get the touchback. I think.
And credit to him for making the play that ended up being an incompletion. I think it was a touchdown. It was call it either way, and I'm like, I get it.
If Dez didn't catch it, he didn't catch it. I'm going to die on that hill.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. So that's what we'll be doing this entire week after we find out. If the Steelers lose, that means that the Chargers have to win. If the Chargers win, then the Steelers come to Baltimore. We will break down the Steelers. If the opposite happens, we'll break down the Chargers. So any other thoughts from this game, this season, Jake?
Just the season in general. I tweeted out a little bit of a thread on it. I don't know, man. I just got a lot of respect for this group. Starting out 0-2, I think some of the issues that I was worried about reared their ugly head throughout those first couple of games. Green, kind of inexperienced offensive line in some transition, a coaching staff that suffered a lot of brain drain and obviously tragically lost one of their own before the season started. But man, they really weathered that storm. And not only did they weather it, but I think they thrived this season. I mean, to start out 0-2, finish 12-5 in a division that you're not just going to be handed any game. I mean, think of those shootouts that they had to win against the Bengals. Those are some of the most fun Ravens wins we've seen in years. Finally kind of getting over the hump and beating the Steelers a couple weeks ago in a dramatic fashion with that pick six. That was awesome. Obviously, you get your annual weird in-division loss to the Browns in Cleveland, but then you bounce back in a big way today. I know it wasn't always the most fun, clean game to watch, but ultimately they win it 35-10. You finish the division 4-2 in a tough one. You play all these AFC playoff teams, only really taking that loss to the Chiefs. And just overall, man, just feel lucky to be a Ravens fan, I think. And particularly in this iteration, lucky to be able to watch Lamar Jackson, who just gets better and better and better every single year. And it just doesn't feel possible. It doesn't feel, I wouldn't say it doesn't feel sustainable, but it's like the guy's been so good for so long already. I think he was well on his way to being a Hall of Famer at the end of this past year, or at the end of last year. And now this season, 40 passing touchdowns. Would you have ever thought, when they picked him in 2018, that he'd be throwing for 40 touchdowns and also running for 900 yards and also passing for 4,000 yards? And
no one in history has ever done it. So no
one's ever done it. I mean, it's just amazing stuff what he's done. And like I said in the tweet thread, like, I don't know what's going to happen in the playoffs this year. I mean, I hope that they don't, have another frustrating performance and we got to go into the offseason feeling uncertainty. But before that happens, I just want to take a step back and say what a fun season this was, and looking forward to see if they can keep things rolling.
Shootouts against the Bengals, you win both of them. Getting over the kind of mini hump there against the Steelers once you finally turn to them. Beating the crap out of the Bills. The Eagles game was tough. The game in Pittsburgh was tough. You mentioned those disappointing games. I'm also going to maybe put my foot in my mouth. Kelly McCoy here has the defensive turnaround, has been kind of historic. Seriously. They became the top defense in the NFL in terms of advanced metrics and explosive play rate allowed and EPA and all that shit. Once they made the changes necessary, dealt with Deontay Johnson, Marcus Williams, Eddie Jackson, all the struggles there, the offensive line, losing their offensive line coach. And I know you give Lamar Jackson credit, and it is absolutely deserved. And every time he's healthy, knock on the wood, every time he's healthy, they are a weapon. They win 11 games minimum every time he's healthy and can play a whole season. So that's one thing, but you do have to give this coaching staff so much credit for dealing with probably mistakes that they made and then adversity that they had to overcome, and bringing in Dean Pease, dealing with replacing Joe D'Alessandro, and bringing in George Warop there to replace him. Losing 2 guards, losing 4,000 defensive snaps, and 50 years of coaching experience across every room that you had. No small feat. And they have improved and won 4 straight coming out of the bye. They got to that late bye, win 4 straight, win the AFC North, and get a home playoff game. They're maybe a Kyle Hamilton caught interception instead of dropped against the Browns, or maybe, a Justin Tucker made kick here or there from probably being the 2 seed. So awesome job. And John Hart, I know the playoffs are a huge deal and people have just been kind of waiting. Like Ravens fans all expected the Ravens to make the playoffs. I don't think I'm really impressed with what this coaching staff did this year. John Harbaugh is his last year, next year of his contract. Whatever happens in the playoffs, I think you roll with John next year, and he steadied the ship. I think this The Ravens got the 1 seed and went to the AFC Championship last year. And I think this was a lot more impressive coaching job this year. I think that this took some fucking chutzpah and balls of steel to have some trouble going on in the locker room with some guys and some big names, have the brain drain you mentioned, and then, the adversity they've had to overcome. So I'm really impressed. Last year, I said, I hope that the Ravens would move on to Mike Macdonald. And, I think that could have been the right move still today. But at this point, I don't think you have a Mike Macdonald on your staff. And I'm content as hell with whatever happens in the playoffs with, rolling in. I mean, if they get rolled on 1 week from today by the fucking Chargers and his brother beats the shit out of him in his own place, sure, I'm fine with firing him or whatever. But I don't think that happens. And whatever happens, I think. Great job, John. Great job, Ravens coaching staff. Zach Orr, bringing in Dean Pease. Todd Monken's been fantastic for the most part. All those guys. So, I mean, they've had fucking special teams issues. Kicking the ball was an issue. And you're like, why is this now an issue?
Yeah.
As the head coach, you're like, I now need to examine what's going on in this. That's like, to make a political reference, it's like everyone's hyper fixating on the Department of Education, which is the smallest department fiscally. And it's being like, oh, fuck, I have to think about the kicking unit now and I have the highest paid kicker in the NFL. Do I need to go spend my time figuring out what's going on there when I have drama in the locker room? I have a bunch of young coaches and a bunch of young players and replacements. That sucks. You don't anticipate having to be like, do I need to get another fucking kicker? Do I need to fire my special teams coach? Do I need to be spending more time with the kicking specialist and Randy Brown? That sucks. That's a shitty thing to have happen. And they've kind of overcome it. We'll see if Tucker can make his kicks in the playoffs, but shit, I'm impressed. And great job, John. Great job, Ravens coaching staff. Having Lamar makes things a lot easier, but I mean, look at fucking Zach Taylor. Their defense was having similar struggles. They have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and, Chase Brown's a nice back. They don't have him in this game. They have fucking Joe Burrow, and they didn't win the AFC North. They lost to the Ravens twice, and bingo, bango, boom. So Ravens are fucking class. The Ravens are pure class.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, again, I'd go back to myself picking the Ravens to be 10-7 and picking the Bengals to win the division. It just shows the difference in class of organization. The Bengals just dealing with contractual issues with Higgins and now Chase. And it's just like, there's always this drama going on. Like the Ravens, they have their drama, but they find a way to just kind of keep it behind closed doors, whether you're talking about Deontay Johnson, whatever's going on with Marcus Williams, all that stuff. Like they kind of just keep it in-house and they just weather the storm. And you're right. It's an incredibly impressive coaching job. So again, we've got our frustrations with Harbaugh. I think we both wanted to make the move to McDonald this time last year. They didn't do it. And God damn it, I got to give them their credit for the fact that, like I said, 0-2 and you finished 12-5. I mean, there's just not much else to say other than just tip your cap and say great job. And just lucky to watch Lamar Jackson. It might all.
Hall of Fame. We're watching a Hall of Fame quarterback that's doing things that no one else has ever done.
Yeah, it's amazing. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this season and this game. And like we've been saying, we'll see what happens in the playoffs. It might, in fact, it more than likely will end in heartbreak. The degree of heartbreak, I guess, could be better or worse. I guess we'll see what happens. But until then, just wanted to take a moment to step back and say I enjoyed this regular season. So
very much so. Justin Phillips facing the Steelers. I'm actually going to retract my statement from earlier. I think the Steelers are the easier team to beat.
Apparently, they're looking like absolute shit in this game. I only got to watch a little bit of it, but yeah.
They're, they can force a fumble and they'll do that shit, but their offense is just a fucking mess, and it has been for years and years and years. And they had a couple games, I think, that were fool's gold. Whatever you say, the Bengals defense fucking sucks, and the Steelers are completely inept and unable to do anything. I imagine George Pickens isn't doing so well, and I'll always think of that. Hard Knocks has been so fun to watch for so many reasons, covering the entire division, and one of them was when he slipped and fell down the last time these two teams played, and I think it was Cam Taylor-Britt had a pick six or whatever to open the game, and Mike Tomlin had to be like, please stay with me. Please don't go crash. He was basically like, I'm begging you not to crash out right now. Please don't do what Antonio Brown has done and Le'Veon Bell and, Deontay. Please stay with me. He was like, don't get lost. Like, stay with me. I imagine George Pickens is crashing out right now pretty hard. So I think
He
they're
looks
in a
like
pit of misery.
Yeah, that video last week that came out of the locker room. Apparently, there was. I didn't watch the full thing, only a second or two of it. But yeah,
It was only like 30 seconds with Russ saying they weren't on the same page, and he was like, "Did you say that or did he say that?" And the reporter was like, "He said that," and George Pickens just was like, "How?" It was like, I'm trying to think of like a Game of Thrones reference or something of like the level of disrespect that he felt by Russ, like basically saying anything that wasn't positive about him. He just ended the interview and had his freaking ski mask on, whatever the hell they're called. They're his shiesty on, and it was wild. So
like
I think the Steelers are the shittier team to play.
Tony gives the jacket to Paulie or whoever, and Richie Aprile sees it. He's just fucking like apoplectic.
Yep.
The jacket.
Exactly. So regular season 2024-2025, it's done. T-shirts, hats. By the way, we've had our little things to bitch about in the stadium. I've never bought anything AFC North ever once. I own nothing that is AFC champion. I only have Super Bowl shit, and I don't have that much of it. I told myself, I think I've said it even on this podcast, I'm going to go get AFC North shit. I'm going to go get a T-shirt and a hat. The Ravens at the end of the game on the video board, they say, go to these 5 locations of these team stores, and you can go get it. I was maybe 38th in line. I went right out. I was like, I'm going to go get a T-shirt. And if they have a hat, I'll get a hat. I get in there. I'm 5th now in line. They say, we only have double XL and small. I said, well, good thing I'm 6'2" and eat a lot of cheeseburgers because I'm a double XL. And I was like, that's great for me. Then I'm 3rd in line, and they say, we only have small now. How do you run out of the T-shirts? How did they possibly run out of them so quickly? Oh, I can order it online, I'm sure.
Yeah, just get it online. Just get it online. That's, yeah.
But buying it at the stadium, that gives you a little extra sentiment on it,
I get
You're
it.
there. It gives you a little extra, imaginary scent on it. So that pissed me off. But
okay.
And shout out to EDC too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Drafting and developing everything they've done. Linderbaum, Hamilton, Flowers, Bateman, Likely, Owe, fucking
10 sacks.
All the guys he's paid. I mean, Matabike, isn't having his baby Aaron Donald season quite like last year, but he's a Pro Bowler again and is still a good player, a nice player. They have not made they haven't drafted anyone high or signed anyone to a impact amount of money that has fucked them. Marcus Williams, and he was honestly fine, he was good and then got hurt.
Yeah, but it's tough.
So it's tough. Shout out to all. I think that does it for us.
All right. Well,
like and subscribe. Easiest way to support the podcast. If you're watching still, please just go like it on YouTube, subscribe to it on YouTube, tell a friend about it, share the link, retweet something. Easiest way to do it.
Approaching the 3K mark there. So yeah, tell a friend, get us all subbed up on YouTube there, spread the word, follow us on social media at Exit52 Podcast on X and on Instagram. I am at Jake Louque. That's Louque. Spenny's at Ravens 4 Dummies. That is a number 4 in the middle there. Brian at Barstool Banks. Taylor at Taylor Smythe 10. Eric at EDITTI 22. Thank you all for hanging with us for another very fun regular season. As we said, we'll be back at it this week, pumping out some playoff content. Obviously, have a preview and a recap of that first playoff game, whoever it might be. Looking forward to it a lot. Appreciate you guys a lot, and we'll talk to you again very, very soon.
See ya.
Arrivederci.